Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Guns of Navarone, RMP, Troy Shuker, Bosnail, Justin Duso, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, Nathan Thompson, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick, Erwin Jennisons, Abraham Mohammed, Dave Rakia Gafford, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, Alexander Main, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'm going to hand over to Google and Discord so you can enjoy whoever is in there and their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Where's that?
The east coast of Australia.
Sorry, I missed the first part.
I'm 18 minutes away from the new year.
Oh, I see. Oh, excellent. 18 minutes till 2021 for you in Australia.
That's right.
Epic. Well,
I just seen them celebrate Australia on TV.
Say again, Neil?
I just seen them ringing the new year on Australia like a few minutes ago. What are you in a different area?
Obviously.
Oh, that's because I'm in Queensland and we don't have daylight savings. So
Okay.
New South Wales and Victoria, the southern states, they're an hour ahead. Ah, okay, so that's what that is.
I got you.
So we might catch the tail end of people who have partied themselves out at home. And then winding down with the end of the debate at 1 a.m. Or people like you who join the show just as they've kissed everyone else good New Year and are all in a very pleasant mood.
Yeah, hopefully.
I'm in a pleasant mood.
Excellent. That's good to know.
Especially for me. Good morning. Especially after yesterday's show.
What happened on yesterday's show?
Well, it's interesting that they keep coming in. Recap of yesterday's show first. So Daddy came in crying a little bit about a little unfairness he thought, which wasn't really unfair. And then Rumpus came in with a bunch of nice new sayings before the end of the year. But what was interesting, and what's been interesting all along, is how they keep going to this balloon in a vacuum. So they get this little vacuum chamber, and they got this balloon in there, and they're saying, see, it falls down. And what is their point with that? Because we say, if the sky was a vacuum, the air would fill the available space. So what they're showing with the balloon in the vacuum chamber, man-made, of course, is really proving our point, because the balloon is a closed system and you got gas in it, and the gas is everywhere in that balloon. It isn't just sitting at the bottom. It's just everywhere, bouncing within the membranes of that balloon. When that balloon bursts, what happens to the gas? It fills that little chamber that was once a vacuum. Once the membrane of the balloon bursts, that chamber becomes less of a vacuum because the gas now fills the chamber.
Remind me something. Isn't a vacuum chamber a container?
Yes, that's the point. But to demonstrate their outer space, which say is really large and infinite, some people think, we can't do that. So we do it in the lab with a acrylic square box, and we suck all the air out, and we call that a vacuum chamber. Now, if you put a balloon in there with air in the balloon prior to bursting, that's a chamber of itself. So the balloon kind of represents the enclosed system that the Earth has, and the little acrylic vacuum chamber would represent their outer space 10 to the minus 17 torr. Well, when you pop that balloon, all that air goes into the 10 to the minus 17 torr, but that's our argument.
Exactly.
Silly.
Without the container, there can be no pressure. Therefore, their example and say, look, here's a gas-filled container in a vacuum. It's like, okay, well, let's just take that to your model of Earth, and you have a gas sphere without containment in a vacuum, and were we to take the same exact analogy with nowhere near as strong a vacuum and just pop the balloon, i.e. remove the container to make it actually analogous with your reification of an Earth in space, then the gas wouldn't be inside the balloon anymore, it wouldn't be in a sphere anymore, it would simply fill the volume, precisely as we assert as the reason why space is fake. Because if space was real, that would be the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill the space.
And we wouldn't have a show because we'd be dead.
Exactly, none of us would be breathing.
Really? I know, that's why it's awesome. They don't even know they're making our point.
Yeah. Well, that's how things have got to progress, right? It's not enough to just have the argument and win. You've got to hear it said over and over and over again for people to appreciate that it's not an argument that they're ever going to overcome. Even if they simply flat out deny entropy exists and then later appeal to it in their explanations. Rustling.
Yeah, that's what got me. When he denied natural law and he said that wasn't real, he lost me there. Forget it. You're a retard.
Okay, no, he does that so that you can argue about natural law with him, rather than argue about whether or not the sky is a vacuum. There's always a reason why they want to argue about some nonsense, i.e. natural laws aren't real. Well, that's much less damaging than arguing about how space isn't real. How natural law dictates that the sky, if a vacuum, would be an available volume for the gas we breathe to fill. And fill it must. Entropy increase. Gas expands in all directions to fill the availability of volume. Take, for example, a balloon filled with gas in a vacuum. Without the balloon, the gas fills the space. It's just that simple.
So you're saying it's a tactic of his?
Everything's a tactic. They don't have any winning arguments anymore. They have nothing but tactics.
Yeah, well said. The second thing he said after that was gas has little springs on them pulling down to the Earth. So now gas has little springs.
Little springs?
Yeah.
Again, another nonsense.
Bathroom scales.
That's been done so that we laugh at it, though. So that we spend time laughing at it and highlighting that. Rather than saying, right, well, regardless of your nonsense assertion that gas has springs, gas expands with elastic collisions in all directions at high velocity and fills the availability of volume it has to fill. In other words, end the argument that space is real. It's in violation of the natural law that it is the second law of thermodynamics, entropy law.
Well, the coup de grace was the last one. Gravity is insufficient to hold gas to the Earth.
Yeah, what a disclaimer.
Oh, that was a good show yesterday. That was fun.
Yeah, I couldn't get it. I was in bad reception area, and I was getting so frustrated. So I just had to shut it off and concentrate on work.
Well, it'll go out tonight on the second channel. Subscribe today to Nathan Oakley channel. Went on for a fair old while afterwards as well. I vaguely remember it being extremely tedious.
So, Nathan, I wanted to ask you, what happened the day before? You didn't come to the after show. Was there a problem?
Yeah, I pressed the wrong button. They're right next to it. I still haven't moved them. The end live stream and end recording button are literally right next to each other. And sometimes when I'm not looking and I press the button, just out of muscle memory, you think you've pressed it in the right place, but you haven't. You've actually pressed halfway between two buttons and ended the live stream. Now, at that point, an hour and a half into the show, it's either reset up, start another live stream, which will be deeply unpopular. Any second stream that you do, if you have any issues, is always vastly unpopular. Or start a new recording and splice it together with the old one. That takes hours. So at that point, I'm just like, I'm just going to end. So I did. I've done it a couple of times. It's just accidental.
Sorry. It was super funny because Rumpus kept talking and everyone else was quiet, waiting for you to do your intro. and all of a sudden, after talking just for like 3 minutes without taking a breath, he goes like, "Hello, hello." And we're like, "Yeah, Rumpus, the floor was yours. Are you done?"
Yeah, he's not interested in anybody listening either. He's only interested in nothing anybody ever says ever reaching him for him to have to address. And in those vague moments you actually manage to catch him breathing for a second to get something through to him, he'll obfuscate away from it anyway. So he's essentially useless as far as I can see, other than chewing up time talking nonsense.
So when Daddy
It's
came
all
in yesterday,
one-way
did he
traffic
acknowledge
with
any
him.
of the fallacies?
Hold on. I don't know to say. I don't know who went first. Neil, finish off your thought, and then whoever it was that just spoke.
No,
go
I
ahead.
was just wondering if that guy Daddy, when he came in yesterday, did he acknowledge any of the fallacies that he brought the day before, or he just whistled past them again?
He came and moaned that his argument hadn't been heard.
Oh, okay. His non-argument.
Well, everything he put forward got taken to pieces. He didn't listen to a word of any response, and then cried foul because he didn't get to obfuscate every single word I said in reply by talking through it. He then attempted to do exactly that, so he didn't last very long the second time around. It's like, I'll tolerate that initially, but when you've calmed down, come back, and then you just think, no, what I'm going to do now is just disrupt the show. It's like, right, okay, well, you've obviously watched too much Rumpus.
Yeah, I think his claim, Neil, was, so you're going to cut the show, you're going to edit it and take 80% out and then show your winning side, basically. And I think Nathan, if I'm not mistaken, said, well, you never proved the claim or a point. That's the problem.
Yeah, he also claimed I was editing live shows. It's like, you might find NASA get away with that. Me, not so much.
Yeah, they leave and they claim victory. No matter what, they're going to claim victory.
Of course. When someone says, well, no, they go, well, no, you couldn't hear me talking through every word that was taken apart my argument. So that's not a fair victory.
Somebody else was going to say something when Neil talked. Who was that?
Yeah, my bad. I completely forgot. Rams, go ahead.
That's okay.
It was just me commenting on Rumpus, just saying that it's all a one-way traffic, having a conversation with him.
Yeah. In very, very...
He doesn't really listen to the points that are put to him.
No, it's just a string of logical fallacies and ad hominem attacks.
And so many of them don't even realise that they're doing it.
No, they've been trained to do it. And they think that it's justified because they perceive the prejudice we receive as justified. So therefore, what their underlying thoughts are, these people are idiots. They say it all the time. Well, you're just an idiot. If you win, well, you're just an idiot.
They are in the place. I hear an echo, but I'll keep talking. Rumpus came in and said there is no such thing as natural law. Now, if he was smart, he would have said, you are misrepresenting what natural law states. And then we can say, well, tell us where we're misrepresenting. I'll now share that with the scientific method to be the contrast position. So when they come in and we say, well, when you use the word experiment or use the word science and something in the natural world, where's the hypothesis, where's the rigorous experimentation, and they want to do away with that. So we don't say there's no such thing as science, there's no such thing as scientific method, etc. We say you bring in pseudoscience and you don't represent the scientific method properly. They come in and say there is no such thing as natural law. When prior to any of us being born, it's in all the textbooks, the natural law.
No, well, read between the lines. What he's really saying is, your natural law assertion defeats my argument. Therefore, in this circumstance, because I'm completely privileged to use doublethink, natural laws don't apply. And if it's the case that you're still going to assert them because they do apply, I'll say they don't exist. Why not? I'll merely use them again later, because in this conversation right here, right now, bearing in mind people are fickle and have short memories, I'm going to say they don't exist, invalidating your argument, at least for the perceivable short term for anybody who's got half a brain rather than a full brain.
Yeah.
Well, when
but
I
the thing
Googled
is, I
natural
think that-
law
Go ahead,
during the
Lance.
show yesterday, the only explanations that I had come up were legal ones to do with the rights of people.
Okay. They've got names and titles though, like
Yeah.
first law, second law.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
No,
the
I've
for
done
example,
that
the
too,
second law
Rams.
of thermodynamics, as named, second law of thermodynamics, is a law of nature.
To
Yeah.
Rams's search, I did the same thing. I came up with the legal, but then when I put in natural law science, natural law world, then it goes into that context.
Would it not be more accurate to call them scientific laws?
They haven't been through the scientific method, so no.
Okay, right. Yeah.
So they're descriptions only. So in terms of science, what you have is two things: a phenomena, something that occurs, and then your reason or your presupposition, if you will, of what you think it has caused that effect. Now, in the case of a natural law, it's merely the description of what could be a dependent variable, a naturally occurring phenomenon. So it could be put forth as a dependent variable to be validated by science. But that would imply that you're going to validate the cause of entropy. Now, as much as there's been a few times that I've said to QE, well, maybe. I don't think so, is the reality of that. I don't think you're ever going to figure out why entropy increases absolute, why hot always goes to cold, why high pressure always goes to low pressure. The reason for the way that the mechanics of the world work in that regard, I think, will elude us always. I could be wrong. Maybe someone will validate the cause of entropy, but I very much doubt it. But the description, my point, is merely a description. It doesn't give you the cause. It doesn't explain the why of the phenomena. It just describes the phenomena. Well, that's not science, so hence natural law. Now, there's a reason why they call it a scientific law. It's going to be worth going over just in case I do run over the 2 minutes before we start. So, if you're going to assert that, let's say, astrophysicists' assertions about supernova are quote-unquote scientific, then you need something to grease the skids of your use of that word. Now, if you can attribute descriptions of things that occur as science when they aren't adhering to the scientific method, they're only half a hypothesis, a dependent variable, and the description thereof. If you can attribute the word science to that, which is a description of something that occurs always, then it immediately lends credence to the assertions that also fall outside of the scientific method when used with a just so story rather than the description of something that occurs always. So giving a very accurate description of something that occurs, a phenomena, a natural law, call that science, and then you can give your very accurate description of why a light in the sky has appeared, disappeared, does what it does. You can call that science too. So that it's a way of greasing the skids for the magic trick that is using the word of science to assert just so stories. That's why they call natural laws scientific laws. There's a very specific reason why they do it, and that's why.
I think the cogniz is so heavy that they can't see past it.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year.
Yes, if you are watching this live, this is going out on New Year's Eve for us in the UK. For parts of Australia, they're already into the 2021 period. For other parts, they're not. But yeah, welcome and a Happy New Year, depending on where you are.
Thank you, and hello from Australia in 2021.
Hopefully it'll be a lot better year than 2020. Hey, Crit, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, does he have flying cars yet? If he's speaking from the future,
that's true, isn't it? 2021 is like the future for any of us children of the 80s and before. Well, have you any flying cars, hoverboards, maybe?
Nah.
Oh, bummer. There's a hoping. Maybe we'll get some in the UK in 2021. We shall see. You're causing a bit of feedback there, 10th.
All right.
No worries. We're going to do housekeeping anyway, so. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
Well, they got 1 day. They got 1 day left because in all of 2020 they haven't been able to show it to us. So this is their last day.
Worth a plug for Saturday's show. If you're watching this live on Saturday, we will be celebrating the 1 year anniversary of the Black Swan argument. That'll be over on Quantum Eraser's YouTube channel. So be here or be sphere at the new time of 8 PM UK, and I believe it's 3 PM Central. So that's the Quantum Eraser YouTube channel for Ballbusters Live, and that's Saturday. Is it the 2nd? Is it 2nd on Saturday? What day is it today? It's Thursday, right?
Today's the 31st.
Saturday's the 2nd, yes.
Yeah, Saturday the 2nd. So be here or be sphere, Quantum Eraser YouTube channel, and it's 8 PM UK time, live. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Nonsense.
Agreed.
Hello.
Hey, Arwin.
Hey, Arvin.
We're on
Happy
axial.
New Year for everybody that's watching the premiere.
Yeah. You're already all in 2021 if you're watching this on a premiering stream. I think the very last people will have already hit 2021 when this goes out in about 24 hours. No, how long? Who cares? Yeah, Happy New Year. Any evidence of axial rotation? Nonsense, you all say.
Nope, not in 2020 and not in 2021. Still no axial rotation. They still can't get it to move.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Still not proven the distance at all. They have no way of knowing the distance.
Only
What is the sun?
I have no idea. Sorry. Any more on the sun?
You can't measure the distance to an intangible object, can you?
Well said. No, you can't.
How do we know it's intangible?
Intangible means you can't touch it.
Oh, yeah, then it's intangible because we can't get there.
Yep. No angular size change when you're supposedly approaching it either, so when you move towards where you see the sun, it doesn't grow bigger. It just moves away.
We haven't had that argument summarised for a while. I might as well summarise it. So you might be asked, if you're new to this subject, why doesn't the sun change size throughout the day? Yeah. Now, that would be based on their presupposition and baseless stereotyping fallacy that you have a model with a sun that's 3,000 miles up, rotating around a pancake. Now, based on their assumption that you have this model that you will adhere to and defend, they'll ask you why the sun doesn't change in size throughout the day. Now, I'm going to paraphrase what they're actually asking. What they're actually asking is, why does the not actual size, that's apparent size, of the sun, not change in not actual size, that's apparent size, as it moves from its not actual, that's apparent, position? So why does the not actual size of the sun change in not actual size as it moves from its not actual position? Answer, who cares? Not actual size and how much the not actual size changes is irrelevant unless you know its actual size. And their actual size is based on an R value and an assumption that Venus has the same R value as a presupposed Earth's R value. Any evidence of said R value? And shout out to Alexander for the RSD. I'm not sure what currency that is, but it's a sizable super chat. Thank you very much indeed for the 1,000 RSD. Happy New Year to all of the FED crew. Keep up the good work. We certainly try.
Nonsense, but back to the sun. That means God is the master of the universe, because that is an amazing object in the sky.
I think you'll find that's He-Man.
Object, you say?
Whatever it is, it's amazing.
Yeah, He-Man's the master of the universe. Anyway, Julio Pabon. It's Julio, by the way. Just for, and I was listening to your show in the background earlier, Arwen. It's Julio.
I have to keep calling him Julio.
Not Julio. Julio.
Julio?
Julio.
Yeah,
Is he
Julio.
down by the
I
schoolyard?
asked him and he said, no, just keep calling me Julio.
Exactly, like Simon and Garfunkel. Like me and Julio, wherever they were, in the schoolyard, right? Yeah, Julio. Shout out to Julio Pabon. I've witnessed axial rotation at an axe throwing competition. Were they rotating? Were the axes rotating about an axis? The axis around an axis? Man, that's a difficult one to say, and definitely lend context in the subtitles. I'll see how that comes out, Julio. Nice one.
You know, getting Arwen to pronounce some words is like a bridge over troubled water.
Well, I don't know why Spanish would be difficult to those in the Netherlands. There's a certain... It's just a silent J, right? But then again, it's kind of substituted with a H.
But that's Hispanic. I know how to say Julio.
Well, that's perfect. You say it better than I do.
I know, but I asked him because I've been calling him Julio Pabon for like 2 years. And it's like, oh, wait, it's Julio? And he's just said, now just call me Julio. So I'm just sticking to that.
For years, I thought the national anthem was Jose, Can You See? And I was like, there were Puerto Ricans back in the revolution?
Oh, God. Let's not listen to... Yeah. Should we move on with housekeeping before this descends? Any evidence of... well, which one were we on? Any scientific evidence of gravity?
What is gravity?
What is it that you're supposed to have the cause of an effect of exactly? What is the phenomenon?
Listen, more things are going down. That's the bottom line.
Oh,
If
God.
my table wasn't here, everything on
Next
the table
question.
would be accelerating to the floor. And if the floor wasn't there, they'd be accelerating past that.
I don't know if a downward bias is even officially associated with gravity at this point. The official heliocentric version, that is.
Bending of space-time.
Does it in any way mention a downward bias or a relative downward bias or whatever?
Define down.
Exactly, it's
But
relative.
it keeps you on the ball.
Yeah, precisely, it's relative.
But does it even say it does that? The bending of space-time. That
Well,
it
they show it by
creates
analogy.
downward bias.
Yeah, kind of. They show...
What is the bending of space-time? Where are we going? They can't even tell us what gravity is. Now we got to go into bending of space-time.
That's why I'm asking. Like, is it officially even associated with a downward bias?
Well, no, you've got things like
Or is it
orbits.
just they leave it off
Planets
after
here.
space-time and just show you weird animations or whatever.
Things like
and that's
orbit,
it.
Darwin, where it's not necessarily down. You're just falling at a constant velocity around a sphere. Yeah? That's not down either, but they've got things that are constantly falling in this orbital velocity. Nonsense.
I
So
know.
wait,
I'm calling
bending of,
down.
So
the bending of space-time keeps us all on a ball if we believe their nonsense?
No, but by
It keeps everybody standing on a ball, a bending of space-time?
No, but when they show it, they have a literal piece of fabric which they'll stretch out, and they'll shove a big bowling ball on the middle, and then they'll roll a tennis ball around the edge of it. That's how they show it to kids, anyway. Extra reification fallacy. Space-time is a concept. You can't bend concepts, but they'll literally reify it into a physical piece of fabric and show kids it, so that they can at least get some vague idea of what this mathematical reification would look like when they reify it. Moving on.
Yeah, the fabric of space-time. I've heard that said.
Yeah.
Are the Emperor's new clothes made of this fabric of space-time?
The fabric of space-time
It's
is pseudo-Riemannian force space. The geometry we describe with pseudo-Riemannian force space, that is the fabric of space-time according to Einstein. That's what we're describing. That's the geometry of the fabric of space-time.
It's the fabric of space-time is tailor-made by the ballers.
Boom, boom!
A globe.
How did they let him get away with that?
Why do I let him
What's
get
his
away
name?
with it? That's epic. What are you talking about?
Oh, hold on a second. Einstein comes up with this theory, and they let him get away with that?
What do you mean get away with
He
it?
had a way
Hold
of
on, hold
keeping
on.
people in
Hold on.
stitches.
Hold on 1 second, 10th. When he said get away with it, it's been
It was a
described.
cherry on top.
Hold on, Neil. This is where when people say, well, who's at fault? Who's the they? Who's behind all this? Well, we've looked into what he says and we describe it how he says it. Right? We describe the pseudo-geometry as well. Well, all of those things are laid down in the actual details of what it is. Same goes for things like the heliocentric model. So therefore, it's upon the individual to reify it. Now, don't get me wrong, I appreciate that it's heavily encouraged, but it's still down to the individual to reify space-time. Now, you could say, well, there's been the teachers that stretched out the fabric. Yeah, that's an individual reifying it and helping others to reify it also. But that's still just some dude or some chick that's done that. Therefore, it's down to us. When you say, how do they let them get away with it? Well, get away with it is you reifying something that you've been told is pseudo. It's in the name of the geometry. But if you don't know what you don't know and you reify it because some teacher showed you a fabric stretched out with a bowling ball on it, well, that's down to your ignorance. So I'd still blame you. Should have looked in further.
No, I'm talking about the time when he was coming out with this theory. Where were the great minds? Where were the intelligent people? Where was everybody that's debating it right now? Weren't there any people?
Well,
there was.
Yes, there were.
There was experimental
There was a
physics.
whole range of scientists that were like officially protesting Einstein.
It was the other way around. Hold on. It was the other way around. Einstein was protesting them because they were debunking him with actual experiments. That's where we get our quantum theory from. Well, that all came from around the time that Einstein's kicking up a big fuss because it's debunking him. He's the one kicking up the fuss.
On past shows, someone brought up that because they couldn't demonstrate legitimately mass attracting mass, this is why they had to go to pseudo-Riemannian force space.
Maybe. Who's they? The Vatican? Well, maybe.
So how do they prove? So then they don't prove pseudo-Riemannian force space either. So you go from one non-proof to another non-proof, and then it's taught in schools?
Well, if you got to say you live on a sphere, you have to have non-proofs to keep that going, right? Because you can't prove a sphere either.
But you're moaning about the teachings of a religious belief, a philosophy that I describe as being reified by the individual, and saying, well, how do they get away with blah, 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 blah? It's like, well, it's up to you which religious path you choose. Now, the fact that it's not overtly disclosed as being a religious path is neither in nor there. It's still down to you and your choices. Now, the fact that maybe there's some higher power that's figured out that 99% of people are thick and will do precisely what they are told and have exploited that, I don't know that that's the case beyond what I've been shown as the puppet show that is our reality in terms of what's on TV. Now, how much I lend credence to that is very limited. As I get older, even more and more limited. And even less and less do I pay attention to it. But I could pay attention to it, and from within the nonsense that's being taught by way of TV broadcasting or whatever else mainstream media, I could start picking apart how they can get away with talking about these statistics.
But when I talk to normies,
I don't sound that way.
I'm not saying you sound that way. I'm saying that people who do say what you are saying are barking up the wrong tree, because it's almost like you're so arrogant as to say that you will start demanding people assess their own faith, whether they know they've got a faith or not, and if they don't, they need to. It's like, well, who are you? You know, it's down to you as an individual. In terms of the they, how did they get away with it? Well, they put forward a philosophy. Now, maybe it was accidentally reified by the person teaching it, and, well, you can't believe everything you hear. You've got to scrutinise things, and if you didn't, and you didn't learn that lesson because you just blindly listened to whoever reified some model they were philosophizing about, well, that's on you also, isn't it? You know, you don't know what you don't know.
They never said that. They never said this is a philosophy that we're going to teach you. They taught us this as fact.
Yeah, they did.
Like the molten iron core is fact.
Well, the model. The teacher might have said that, but the description was clear. Heliocentric model.
Okay, I'm going to go back. You learn your ABCs and your 1, 2, 3s. You learn some history, and then they throw science at you, and they teach you the heliocentric model. So you're sitting there as a kid thinking everything you're being taught is fact.
No.
They didn't say, listen,
I get what you're saying, Neil. Don't disagree. Yes, there's been a heavy amount of encouragement. I can't. Heaven forbid I ever deny that. I point it out in terms of subliminal programming. So I'm not going to ever deny that, but I'm just saying the way it's been engineered is such that you've got plausible deniability if you ever got to the they. And they just turn around and go, that's your fault. I'm doing it in advance so no one has a shock should they ever reach the Wizard of Oz. Anyway, quick shout out to Twad Wazzle, who says FE Debunker 101 wants a citation for the second law. Okay, feel free to type in the word entropy into Google.
Oh dear, yeah, FE Debunker was in my chat all day long, and just trying to every step of the way trying to deny the logical train of thinking. Just he said he brought up this argument like, QE brought up geometry when it's not involved in optics. So why does he bring up geometry as the horizon in the Black Swan argument? Just the guys, I don't know, man.
But it's because they have a geometric physical sphere edge model with a horizon marked with an X labelled horizon, which is a physical sphere edge in their model, which they assert the horizon is, in pictures that they compare to their model with a physical horizon marked with an X labelled horizon in their model. Well, that's why. Because you've got geometry to prove. That's why.
Yeah, and the problem was I had to explain that to him, and he didn't understand when I did in chat.
The same goes for the second law. Which is more damaging to the heliocentric model? To argue about gas behaviour described by the second law of thermodynamics, that would be gas expanding in all directions to fill the availability of volume. Now, let's not argue about whether or not the second law is real. That's gas behaviour. Oh, what's that? You say you can have gas pressure without a container? Let's see it. Oh, well, I'm going to point at the sky and just assume it's a vacuum. No, that's not good enough. Show us gas pressure without a container. Oh, it can't be done? Yeah, that's because you need containment. So if the sky was a vacuum, the gas would fill the space. Extremely damaging to those of us who assert that space is real and capable of having photos taken from it. Therefore, let's argue about whether or not the second law is real, rather than whether or not gas expands in all directions and would fill a sky vacuum called outer space. Yeah, I know which one I'd rather argue about if I was on the losing side of an argument that needed a sky vacuum. I'd much rather argue about whether or not the second law's real. Let's discuss the second law all day, rather than gas behaviour. Gas expands in all directions. It's described by the second law. What's that, you say it's fake? Oh, right. Well, gas still expands in all directions to fill the availability of volume it has to fill. It's described by that natural law you're denying. But let's not concern ourselves with your entropy denial.
Shall I remind the person that circumference, diameter, and radius is also geometry?
Yeah,
right on.
But I have a follow-up to that, with the gas pressure without a container and natural law. he actually had a statement in chat saying that natural law, if it's not written down, doesn't exist. He actually said that. So,
Well, everything is about proving a sphere that they can't prove. So they're making stuff up.
well, no, they're making stuff off. They're literally offing the foundations of reality. He's just saying, no, if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. So if he can't find it written down, then it just doesn't exist. So he's literally saying, okay, so if something has not been consciously received or understood, then it does not exist.
That's good.
In reality.
Yeah,
That's what he said.
Owen,
How
let me
about
just address that.
It's
Sorry.
written down, and he just hasn't found it. How about that?
No, that's good. Let's not worry about arguing about his denial of reality. Good. Encourage it. See it for what it is. Somebody who is content to deny reality to fight for their religious belief. So just point that out to them. Okay, entropy denier, no worries. Deny how nature behaves at a fundamental level, described accurately, inviolable. You're never going to violate the fact that hot always goes to cold. That's what it does in nature. High pressure to low pressure. That's inviolable. That's just a description of something that happens always. Now, their denial of that is irrelevant. Their sky vacuum belief is something that they're prepared to deny reality for. Oh, great. Laugh at them for their adherence to their fundy belief, rather than tell them, no, this is how you should be perceiving reality. I don't care how you perceive reality, fundy. You're denying the very nature of reality so that you can have a sky vacuum to have CGI pictures of a ball Earth you think you're on because you've got a model that you've reified. That to me is quite amusing and sad, but certainly not something that I want to discipline someone out of. More power to you, you fundy crazy. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
No.
Gmail.
All year, not from Becky. When questioned in 2019, nothing from Becky. So we're going to go into 2021 without a response from Dr. Becky.
Or a hypothesis.
Guesswork and leaps of logic.
I would like to see a scientific report from Dr. Becky, what she's been doing science-wise this year.
I'd rather just have a hypothesis from her that's viable. She's calling herself a scientist. Give us a viable hypothesis. How difficult can it be? Or turn your badge in and realise the dark reality of your situation, Becky. You're a pseudo-scientist. You've never adhered to the scientific method. You probably don't even know what it is.
Or she just rejects it.
She's a nutter. She's telling you you've got cousins that are rocks. That, to me, is somebody that needs locking up in some insane asylum as a nutter.
That was Michelle Thaler.
Oh, my bad. I'll take it back.
Same tree.
Dr. Becky was not that nutty.
Not that nutty. No, fair enough. Well, still, viable hypothesis is all we're asking for. I don't want a detailed report. I don't want to put her to any trouble. She's a scientist, so give us some science. That's all we're asking for. That's not unreasonable. If you're a scientist, give us a hypothesis. Simple. Any evidence?
Cool.
Go on.
And I'm just saying it would be kind of cool if she at some point would try it.
What, try and science something? Yeah, that would be useful.
Try out some classical science, like really old, maybe just water boiling, just to get real for a second. I would love to see her do that.
You don't know what it is.
She must have heard that water boiling being science and scientific method based. She must know that, right?
No, stop.
No, hold on
no,
a second.
Stop. Hold on, Rams. Hold on.
Is different.
Hold on, Neil. No. Water boiling isn't science, right? That's just the description of the dependent variable. Establishing through variation of heat as an assumed cause and it causing the water to boil, that would be the description of a validated hypothesis, otherwise known as an experiment, i.e. varying that which you assume causes the effect you observed in nature, the effect being boiling water. You observe it in nature and go, what causes that? I think it's this. Then you vary it, in this case heat, and then you see if it causes the effect. Heat causes the water to boil. That's it. You validated by way of experiment a hypothesis. If A, then B. If heat, then water boiling. Well, you've also got a null. If heat, then no water boiling, no change. Which obviously you invalidate upon causing it to boil with heat. That's experimentation, based on hypothesis, based on natural phenomenon. Boiling water is a natural phenomenon that you can figure the cause of with an experiment when you assume the cause and get it right.
Right. Okay. I rushed it a little. Water boiling, but you knew what I meant though, because you laid it all down. So
No reason to get all steamed up about it, though.
Very good. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius? Where's chocolate?
None
Oh, it's not here.
whatsoever. Where is chocolate?
A little hot under the fabric of your collar.
Black Swan. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Now that's nonsense. But I was taught it in school, so it's right. And it's my fault that I didn't pick it up, right?
Yeah, it's your fault.
I hear the tone of
Evidence
sarcasm,
and
Neil. I don't appreciate it.
presupposed?
Sorry, whoever that was. Sorry, go ahead.
Evidence and presupposed in the same question?
Yeah, you can get away with that. So, if you, in terms of what I've just described, so offering scientific validity starts with something that you presuppose will cause the effect. Well, no, it's not even a presupposition. Then it's a supposition as opposed to a presupposition, because that's assuming it's correct before you validated it. No, you're correct. I take it back. Yes, you're right. Don't make sense in the same sentence. Oh, chocolate's come in to whisper Black Swan late. Hey, chocolate. Hey, chocolate.
Did somebody pop a cork?
Good morning, guys.
morning.
That's what it sounded like, didn't it?
So,
Good morning,
Now we're
Chocolate.
just waiting for Happy New Year.
Chocolate, give us a voiceover.
May I
Say
make
Black
it to you,
Swan.
buddy?
Let's get some control. Hello, chocolate. Good to have you here. You missed the question about R.
R. Black Swan.
Beautiful.
There you go.
There we go.
Last but by no means
Hello.
least. Last but by no
Just
means
was.
least. We'll get to the end of housekeeping, then we'll just chit chat openly. Any evidence that
Yeah.
you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Nope. If I turn my fan on,
In a vacuum.
If I turn my fan on.
I first got
love that
There's a
one.
leak. There's a
I-
leak.
what, you're
I
saying
first
that's
got wind
invalid?
of that argument 3 shows ago.
Jeez, bro.
Oh, darn it.
Aside from red herring gas pressure differentials, i.e. starting with the gas pressure already, is there any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
None whatsoever, Nathan. We just want them to demonstrate it before they presuppose it or suppose it or whatever they want to do.
Oh, they're way beyond that. Immediate pointing to the sky and going, well, look, that's a sky vacuum that I'm trying to prove. And the gas isn't filling it, proving it. That's their mentality. That concludes the housekeeping.
That was a fun housekeeping.
What you do is you just point at the sky. When they point at the sky and they say vacuum, you look at them and take a real deep breath and then blow it out and just say, what vacuum? What you mean? If there was a vacuum, I couldn't breathe right now. What are you talking about? I don't even understand. Vacuum. You know how vacuums work? It's just ridiculous, but to me.
But that's when you get their gears working in their brain, hopefully, right, Chocolate?
Well, hopefully at that point. But if the conversation has to move past that, then we're probably not going to get very far.
Well, in school, like we started the pre-show, the indoctrination is part of us not asking questions, believing the teachers throughout all the education levels. And so then when they meet us now, and we say these things, we're going against indoctrination. They've really never taken time to assess, was the teaching right in the first place?
I see now they snuck it in with truth, like 2 + 2 is 4. So you're going to believe that. And then they teach you these things that are believable and true, and then they slip in the heliocentric model. I see how they did it.
Yeah, they did it in science class.
Well, the smart ones will say that it is a theory at the start, but then they'll go on to explain it as if it's all been validated and confirmed.
Oh, you're going to hate me now, Rams. I'm going to do the same thing I did to you last time. So, again, the word theory is a magic word because there's two different types. There's a scientific theory, and you're going to be taught about what? The heliocentric theory in a science class? That's interesting because it's a colloquial term that they're using. Could be a Nostradamus theory or a Mystic Meg theory, right? Then you've got a scientific theory, and that's where the magic trick comes in, because a scientific theory is based on, what do you think? Well, experiments, validated hypotheses. That's where you get scientific theory. Empirically validating cause of an effect then leads to scientific theory. So you phrase it, well, they tell you it's just a theory. Well, hang on a second, just a theory? That would be something that's based on validated science. But not when they say theory, right? It's Mystic Meg. It's a just so story. It's an astrophysicist looking at the sky and making something up about a light thereof. Well, that's not science. But they call it a theory? And say, well, it's just a theory? Nah, just a magic trick.
Well,
but science is the pursuit of knowledge, isn't it?
The fact that they teach it to you when you don't have like any critical thinking skills is pretty telling to me.
A couple of quick shout outs. Godzilla37, first of all, smashes the super chat and says, members only chat. I'll become a member when the world is proven flat. And then Tony leaves a message, Bible Literalist leaves a message, and then Godzilla becomes a penguin. So obviously been proven in the last two chat messages to Godzilla. Thank you for joining as a penguin, and thank you for the super chat. On a slightly different subject, I've mentioned a few times that I'll watch other subject matters on YouTube that are completely unrelated to Flat Earth. In a way, it's kind of to escape the subject, but in a way, it's just because there's other stuff out there that isn't Flat Earth that I find interesting. However, more often than not, the subject makes its way into things that I will pick because I think, well, that's highly unlikely to ever cover Flat Earth. So you start off with that delusion when watching just a car video, and then you end up with somebody covering specifically Flat Earth in their car video, even if it's about engineering. Engineering Explained being a good example. Anyway, you go on to other subjects, horror videos, stuff, true stories about crimes, things like that, and you end up with the person who's covering it, that chapter, talking about Flat Earth. And I could go on and on and on. Anyway, I always seem to think I've found something that's never going to be poisoned by this subject in a negative way. I.e., if they're covering it, they're definitely going to be ridiculing us and this subject. There's no doubt about that. So you don't want it to come up for that reason. You're like, oh, I don't want to hear you ridiculing me inadvertently with your baseless stereotyping fallacy. Anyway, I thought, for a good example of this, that the legal case, the legal battle between the Sun newspaper and Johnny Depp, I thought that was a good subject that would never, how could that have Flat Earth in it, right? How could it have Flat Earth? It can't, right? It's a legal battle. It's Hollywood. How can that have anything to do with Flat Earth? Yeah, well, sure enough, somebody writes an article about it and starts off by detailing a standard which they use a false equivalence between Flat Earth and scientific evidence, and then go on to detail legal standards. And you're like, oh, and this person's getting all sorts of praise because the person's covering its bias towards Johnny Depp, and they're being what he calls even-handed because they're describing the circumstances that befell Johnny Depp from Johnny Depp's vantage point, therefore obviously even-handed, right? Anyway, this person uses this juxtaposition between Flat Earth right at the beginning of the video, and my heart sinks. You're like, oh, God, I didn't expect that to be part of this video. But when I'm showering or wherever I'm thinking and whistling away some tune in my head or whatever, I was thinking about it and going, actually, that sort of shows the level of saturation that this subject has got. It's made its way by osmosis into almost all other subjects I've ever looked at. Even if I think they're so unrelated to this, at some point, they end up talking about the nature of reality in the terms of heliocentric globe Earth, or the contradiction or the disagreement that people who are called flat earthers might have about that particular subject. That will come up at some stage in almost anything I watch. Now, like I say, at first, I was, you can probably tell by my upbeat tone, that at first I was quite negative about this and it used to annoy me. Now I'm thinking, actually, this subject is just touching everybody. It doesn't seem to matter what you're covering. At some point, you're going to get touched by this subject in some small way or another, which softens people up. You know, and when I've got that hat on, that I say, well, actually, it could be a controlled release. You can't just let it out and have some, I don't know, some president of some country say, well, actually, we've lied all along. It's not, we were wrong, or we've been telling you it's a sphere when it's actually flat. That would send the place into chaos. But how do you then obviously change a paradigm? Well, you've got to let it out slowly, right? And you can't let it overflow at a rate that's uncontrollable. So you've got to have some sort of control over it. And we see that all the time here in the debate, you know, and it's, I keep saying it's us that does that, but that's a natural ebb and flow of something that's obviously going to change a paradigm for a lot of people. And you can't have a point where the people who are eventually going to realise, you hope, the nature of their reality, seeing it other than seeing it and then reaching for their standard programming and ridiculing it. They've got to see it first, right? They've got to get through that stage. And the more people who get to that stage in the first instance are subject to the exposure to the subject and potentially going to realise the nature of their reality isn't what they've been told. But they've got to get there first. And the more that do, the happier I am about it now. So I'm like, yeah, great. Talk about flat Earth. I won't respond to you in your comments because that just means I'll never be able to respond to anything you've ever said ever because I'll immediately get banned. But there we go. That's a positive note I'm trying to spin, with flat Earth seeming to make its way into everything you ever watch ever. So anybody else had any experience with finding that they're watching some random subject and it somehow manages to segue its way onto this subject? Any other experiences of that?
A lot. Happens a lot, man. I mean, it's everywhere now. It's slow. Like as you were describing that, I'm sitting here thinking you're describing it. Well, you started describing it as negative, and I'm thinking, I don't mind that because it's part of the vernacular now, right? We're getting to a point where it's not weird that people think, oh, the people think the Earth is flat. Well, that's what it was like 5-6 years ago, but it's not like that now. It's like now it's become part of the regular everyday, I don't know, vernacular, I guess I could say. And I think that's awesome. I mean, it's in game shows. They slip it into sitcoms. I mean, they have little snippets on the news. It's everywhere. And yeah, sure, they're gonna make fun of it, but I think they're normalizing it in the beginning before it becomes, I think it's just a natural progression of it.
They're using it in the political arena as a mocking point. I remember Obama saying the Flat Earth Society and the Flat Earthers, and so it's like he's trying to prove a point, and he's using it as this is the other side. They still believe the Earth is flat.
We don't have time for the meeting of the Flat Earth Society.
I was just about to quote that as an example. Perfect. So you can take that two ways, right? You can hear it and take the surface level comment, which is, we haven't got time for flat Earth. Well, how dare you, when the Earth's flat and you've all lied about it? Or, well, he's then permeated those two words out to people, and they're then, at least at a semi-conscious level, aware of it, where they may not have been before. So, kudos, Obama. You influenced a load of people who may have never even considered the idea, other than to hear it in the ridiculing terms that they heard during their education process. But they might have forgotten all about it. Well, maybe the intention was to remind them that they should be ridiculing it. But either way, got to start somewhere, I suppose.
I think that's what they don't get. I think just saying flat Earth will, while I'm sure they hope that initial reaction will be, oh my God, that's just crazy. But for some people, that's not crazy. Some people just need to hear that and hear that that's an option, and then all of a sudden it changes everything.
Maybe.
So I don't think that's a very good strategy for them at all.
Maybe. I mean, because I'd certainly heard it's not, I don't know if you could even call it described in scorn, because like a describing of a possibility of a flat plane by Vsauce, I'd definitely been subject to that before hearing Math Powerland say the words flat Earth, but in a completely different tone and context. So hearing it for me in a completely different tone and context, not the way Obama or Vsauce were portraying it, was what instantaneously woke me up. So no, I don't. From my personal experience, I'd say no, because I just think that it just reinforces the idea that it's supposed to be scorned. But enough people hear that they're going to potentially investigate it, or at least have it normalized a little bit. Maybe. Like I say, I can fight both sides of this argument, and often do in my own head, because I don't know, right? Is it a controlled release? Do they eventually want to just let the paradigm of the heliocentric model, which has failed completely, go? Because it has to die. It's not real. So maybe it's just a ham-handed, botched way of letting it out. I don't know. IV23 says thank you. Not entirely sure what for, but I'll thank you back for the super chat. Really appreciate the support.
Yeah, I think it's being allowed myself, obviously. Now, the initial responses from people who are close to me, who are opposite, range from, "Oh, you gotta be kidding! I mean, you're joking! I mean, you're pulling my leg, right?" To, "Look, don't bring the subject up anymore. This is a psyop. I don't ever want you to talk to me about this." So it goes from one extreme to the other and everything in between. So it is dividing people into judging me as someone who's questioning the current model as either very, very crazy, or, "Look, this, don't even talk to me about it." It just, for some reason, it angers them.
Yeah, the first person I told it angered, and the person was like the biggest conspiracy theorist, right? I say that in quotes, that I knew. I mean, every he didn't believe anything. Everything that he would post on his Facebook, everywhere, about something, about the government lies, about this, about that, all the time. Until I said something about flat Earth, and he was just like, "Oh, you're falling for that psyop." I was just like, "What? Bro, we're not talking about psyops here, man. We're talking about measurements of curvature. There are none." And he refused. He was just like, "Nah, that's just a distraction to everything else, all the other lies, vaccinations, abortion, this, that, the third." He gave me a whole list.
Right. So people start talking about the Federal Reserve and whatever.
Yep.
They're into, like you said, abortion or some topic that there's some conspiracy around. But then you say, yeah, but there is no measurable curvature. You know, water finds its level. Earth's obviously unobservably flat. And they go, whoa, that's a step too far.
Exactly. Like,
Hey,
whoa, brother.
Whoa, hold on there. What's that you say? I'm not allowed to reify the idea of people being antipodal on the bottom of a sphere below me with a non-force force of gravity based on an R value that can't be derived because we haven't got a physical horizon. How dare you?
Yep. And you know, that's my favorite one. I start telling them, that's not my reality, man. If you want to believe that, people are hanging upside down from you, antipodal from your position, thousands of miles underneath your feet, you go right ahead. That's not my reality. Sorry.
Adam.
Unless you want to prove that to me, of course. What's up, Adam?
Afternoon, guys. Happy New Year to everyone for tomorrow.
Or today, for those of you in Australia.
Same to you.
Or, yeah, for the upload.
Happy New Year from 2021.
Thank God, eh? Thank goodness. Get rid of it.
Allah be praised. Praise be to Shiva. Any plans? We're all on lockdown here in the UK. I don't know about anybody else. We're not allowed to do anything.
No, I just got rid of the kids. The in-laws are taking them. So, a couple of shandies, a couple of films, and that's all we got planned.
Wow, sounds exciting.
Not really.
No, not at all.
It's nice and peaceful. They're not like you can do, is there? You can't go out anywhere, no pubs, nothing anyway. So you can't even nip out for a quick shandy anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah. Except your slavedom. In terms of the law, it changed a year ago. So, Get over it. Tough luck. I dealt with it a long time ago. I made my peace with this. A lot of people still haven't. Quick shout out to James Richards, who says, "Hey Globies, you're living in an artificial induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. What's sad is people are trying to wake you up, but you choose to stay asleep so you can live in your unrighteous fantasy. Also, there is no spoon." Thank you very much for the super chat, James Richard. Really appreciate your support.
I don't think they choose to sleep. I just think they think they're right and they believe what they believe.
Or like the other guy the other day, Daddy or whatever his name was, unless we can provide an alternate reality for them to cozily move on with them, not concern themselves with, then they won't discuss it. In other words, I need to stay in this little bubble of comfortable belief, or I need an alternative bubble to jump through to relinquish the old one.
Well, we are offering reality. It's just not a model.
And it's just not a cool story. To replace the cool story we just destroyed? Nah, we don't need to do that.
Yeah, they're going to have to say, okay, Star Wars, Star Trek, Galactica, and all that. That's just entertainment. None of that was real. They're going to have to give all that up. They don't want to.
Yeah, I can't watch them shows anymore.
Well, I still watch it. It's fun to watch. I don't believe it. I've never believed it.
I can't do it.
I don't see it as giving anything up. So
doesn't have the same effect.
I just want to give a quick reference to a guy called Insanity is Sanity. He's still got a channel. He doesn't make any videos anymore. But he and I were discussing this several years back. And one of the things he said was, I've just gone out and bought the Star Wars game. And he was like, it's wicked. Really enjoy playing it. And the comparison would be with something like time travel. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's people who have pushed the idea and whatever nonsense that they're going to push. But the idea that you can travel through time isn't part of our paradigm, right? Can we all just accept that that's the case? That we all understand on any side of the argument that time travel isn't part of our reality. But yet there's plenty of stories of time travel, right? So therefore, the stories of those circumstances with timelines to travel along, concepts to travel along, that could never exist in reality, you're not relinquishing it. That was always a suspension of disbelief. Now, the fact that you can appreciate that you are suspending disbelief about time travel and didn't appreciate that you were suspending disbelief about heliocentrism is neither here nor there. Once you appreciate it, does that mean that you can't suspend disbelief anymore? Well, I'll be honest, I can't. I find it very difficult now, just to shatter my own point. But there we go. I'm just saying that in the same way, if you hadn't been brainwashed into thinking that that particular suspension of disbelief, heliocentrism, was real, then it wouldn't be any different to you now saying, well, the fact that someone comes along and say, you do realise time travel's not possible, if somehow time travel was part of our paradigm. You just go, well, no, okay, fine, it's not actually possible. Like they're telling us that it is, if they was telling us time travel's real rather than heliocentrism's real. They're both just concept realities that you have to suspend disbelief about. One of them has got a reality attached to it, a philosophy that's been reified, and one hasn't. Does that change the context of the movie or the suspension of disbelief? No.
Yeah, but it goes back to Einstein, because I was watching this movie with Denzel Washington called Deja Vu, and it was about him going back, but they went through the whole Einstein theory and everything. So it always comes back to that.
I don't know, Nathan. I agree and disagree, I think. There's genres, like you say, superheroes, Star Wars, because I never really believed it was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. That was never real. So I've no problems with stuff like that, Doctor Who. Except now it's a chick. I've never watched any of those ones. But I'm still happy to watch movies like that where I've got no desire and I go, I'm not watching that sloppy stuff like Apollo 5, a Martian growing potato film, stuff like that. I've got no desire for that, which is not purporting to be fantasy, but purporting to be possibility. And that's where I don't like those sorts of films. So Matrix, all that sort of stuff I'm cool with. Star Wars, even if it's in space, because it's total fantasy. But things like The Martian and Apollo 5, those are the ones that, for me, I've got no interest in watching anymore.
I completely agree.
Yeah, there's a good one. There's a good one, Adam, called Forever Young with Mel Gibson. Have you seen that one?
Okay.
I did.
Before we go on to time travel, I completely agree with you, Adam, other than one comment where you said, no, I completely understand and don't understand. What was the bit you used? A galaxy far, far away. You said, no, I'm not buying that. But you are, or were. I'll put it in past tense. The galaxies far, far away, their being, the concept of galaxies far, far away, that was part of heliocentrism. Regardless of the battles that took place a long time ago, the galaxies far, far away bit is part of heliocentrism that you would be in acceptance of then and not now.
Yeah. The genre was part of the brainwash. I agree, but for me, it was sufficient fun. I'm happy there. It doesn't offend me. I'm happy to go back there. I like the Mandalorian. It's cool. I'm happy. I don't get irate when they fly from one planet to the next. But you show me Matt Damon stuck in a greenhouse on Mars, then I've got no that's where I've no problem going in fantasy. It's going into, look, this could be real, trying to mug you off still. They're the films that
I get it. You want the ones that are based in a little bit of realism. In other words, they're trying to pretend that something that's fake is something that's real by dramatization, like the recreation of the moon landings. There's a film, I've not seen it, but that's another example. The lies about being capable of traveling to Mars and the Martian is the same thing, right? That is pure propaganda. And you're saying you've got no time for that.
Yeah.
I agree. Totally agree. Tony Whittaker,
Yeah,
quick
I
shout
think-
out. Sorry, just quick shout
I think
out.
I'm with Adam there too. The propaganda ones I don't like, but the other ones I already know they're not real, but it's entertainment.
Well, the fact that somebody who has potentially, like Lucas, suspended disbelief in the same way everyone else has, and then created a fictional universe, I can't use any other word, around his current religious belief that everyone holds, and created a good story and narrative around it, is programming, but it's inadvertent programming on a part of the producer. Now, it could be argued that he was gotten to and told that he's got to create a space story, or it could be argued that because he was creating a space story that many who were creating it thought it would be a load of crap, that space story got a lot of promotion and has become like pop culture merely because it was a space story. That also could be argued, but it doesn't change the quality of script writing or the manner in which your suspension of disbelief has to take place. That's what Adam's saying. Whereas when you take a propaganda movie, there's a very different story being told. It's a story of, this is a dramatization of something that's not happening but could happen in the future, and this is how it could happen. Well, no, it couldn't happen like that, but that's what's being pushed. I'm just going to shout out Tony Whittaker. Happy birthday, or happy anniversary, to the #1 globe killer, the Black Swan. How do you like those apples, ballers? Indeed, they don't. It destroyed their paradigm. Black Swan. Thanks for the super chat, Tony.
I was gonna say, like, the best, to me, I feel like the best example of that would be the movie Gravity, because they directly link that to problems that we are supposedly having in space, where we've put so much garbage up there that space debris could be a problem. So much so that at the end of the movie, or on the Blu-ray of that movie, because I bought it years ago, there's a whole featurette where I think it's Ed Harris who comes out talking about, this problem of space debris that we have and how we can solve that in the future. It's insane because
that's a good example, Chocolate. That's a film I've not watched. I won't watch it because I've got no desire. I've seen little clippets of people saying it's got better CGI than NASA, but I've got no desire to go and watch that. It just frustrate me. I would just be. My wife wouldn't sit down and watch it with me because I'd just be going, "Oh, that's nonsense. That can't happen. Oh, look at that. No. Do you know what I mean?" And it's that you're not asking me to go into fantasy land, other than your ball fantasy, and accept a real life story with the pretend that this could happen. Like next year, I could be up in space myself still. And they're not asking me to pretend that. You're asking for me to accept that as a possible reality still in this film.
Right.
Especially that movie, because it's full of bullocks.
Oh my God.
I do that with every movie, just so your wife feels a bit of sympathy. I know you do that because it's deep. It's close to your heart subject matter that's being propagandized. With me, I did A-level film studies, so every film I'm pointing out continuity errors or, I don't know, whatever, criticism I've got for movies. So I'm a nightmare to sit and watch a movie with. Don't ever watch a movie with me.
The news, we was watching a bit of crap TV, Agatha Raisin last night, and then finished. News come on. She kicked me out of the house because literally it's on, and I'm just going just constant jibber jabber because you can see the propaganda, the way it's portrayed. It's not news anymore; it's opinion. Yeah, so
I haven't watched news for years. I mean, since I was a kid. If pre-teen, I stopped watching news and recognised it for what it was. Pre-teen.
Yeah.
And I've never watched since. Just don't watch the news. It's just nothing but poison.
It's not something I actively do. Like I say, it came on and it's just that same level of aggravation. You can see the propaganda in it. It's quite obvious. Maybe not as far back as you, Nathan, but it's, yeah.
Yeah,
Would it be,
it's too difficult to suspend your belief, isn't it, to enjoy the movie?
I could say the same about news. For example, they'll throw up a cue card. This is going back to the memory of the thing that threw me off news, where it said something, words to the effect of, viewers may find the following images disturbing, words to those effect, to then show precisely nothing, like zero, that would be in any way considered graphic, horrific. And it dawned on me, having prepared myself as a young boy for the horrific things that were going to be on the news that they were talking about, and then saying, there aren't any. What are they going on about? And they're telling us all about them. There's verbal discussions of the things that are horrific, and there isn't any. Where are they? There aren't any. Just nonsense.
Yeah, agreed. But
yeah, they're always fuzzed over or...
Well, since then, I've had other people show me, some of the nuclear detonations that are clearly models that they've blown up, and some of the testing that they've done with TNT that they've then passed off, some of the images of the sun that they've passed off as nuclear explosions. You're like, it's just blatant fakery from much, much earlier times when they had much worse cinematography techniques to use. So now you look at them and they go, that's so obviously fake and pretend. I mean, it's really, really obvious. And yet you'll have people who'll look at it, and just because it's been described as being real, sometimes I see those images spliced into modern films. In other words, they use the really basic stock explosions that's supposed to be nuclear as part of their filmed piece. And it's like, well, isn't it obvious that the polished nature of your film really contrasts the really terrible fakery that you're using from historic, quote unquote, historic stock footage? You're like, doesn't it really glare of being fake when you contrast it with the two? But for most people, even when they're in a really polished film and it cuts back to those old sort of shots, people don't spot it as being what it is, like so glaringly, obviously staged. But me, like I said earlier, I studied performing arts and film studies, so I'm looking for the cracks in the stage performance. And when you see it in things like news, not that this was well before college, but when you see it in things like news, you're like, there shouldn't be any cracks in this. It should be documenting the things that occurred. There's never going to be any cracks in that, right? You turn up at the scene of a crime with a camera and just film it. Other than your narrative you put on the top of it, right? What's there is there, right? How could there be cracks in it?
Precisely. So before the show ends, let's talk about a movie that is reminiscent of what's happening today, which is The Matrix.
Matrix? Is that a movie?
Yeah, The Matrix.
The Matrix.
I was talking to my son yesterday, and he says, this is more and more like The Matrix. People thinking they're living in this reality, but it's not that reality.
Indeed, and we'll have to get into the whys and wherefores of The Matrix in the after show. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, joined as a member, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Yeah, but the after show, they might pop in here if they're even there.
Well, when I heard Rumpus deny natural law and say that that's not real, I was like, oh my goodness, he's off the rails.
Won't be the first time he's off the rails.
Keep telling you, that's just because it's easier to argue about whether natural law's real rather than describing gas behaviour and it filling their sky vacuum, debunking it.
So a description of what happens in nature is not real. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Rumpus.
Hey, I like when you said, Rumpus, does that vacuum chamber, is that a container?
I mean, is it?
Chamber sounds like a
How can
chamber.
you sit there with a
container.
straight face, tell us we don't require a container for gas pressure, meanwhile describing a helium balloon inside a vacuum chamber? Are you slightly out of your mind, or what's going on there?
I need
Might as
two.
well
They
call it
always
a
need
vacuum
two.
container.
They always need two, right? I can show gas pressure without a container. Right, here's a butane canister. I'm going to pump it into a pipe. I need two containers to show gas pressure without a container.
It's true. They always do come with two, right?
Well, that was epic yesterday when Rumpus described, when you listen to the show, I believe what I'm saying would be validated. He described the two containers while saying you can have it without them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I say, far better to just debate whether or not natural law's real than debate whether or not gas will fill the availability of volume as described by the natural law that is the second law of thermodynamics.
But that's not true to natural law.
Yeah, meanwhile, gas will fill the availability of volume. The fact that that is part of the second law is irrelevant. Gas will still fill the volume, and you still need a container. What's that? You can show me a balloon, a container, inside another container? That's lovely. So you need a container then.
Where did he get the
I got a
springs
question.
from?
If gas always fills a container and we're in a container, right? We're living in a container. The Earth is inside a container. Then why is the air not filling it?
It is.
Like uniformly.
How do we have air in the first place?
But it is filling it. What are you talking about? It does fill it.
Okay, so on Mount Everest, it's as easy to breathe as at sea level?
Gradient.
Right, so there's gas up on Everest then. So what's happened is gas that was created at ground level has made its way up to Everest. So the gas has made its way up. Likewise, in the sky...
Okay, so...
Before you interrupt me continually, after only about 3 breaths. So likewise, in the sky, you've got nothing creating gas at all, but there is still gas there. But it's got less, but it's still filling the volume. That's the process of it thinning out as it fills it. That's it filling it.
Okay. So, do I get you correctly? If you're saying that there's just not as much gas at Mount Everest as at sea level, as there is at sea level, because the gases are in process of filling it up, the container. Right.
No, it's a dynamic system.
It's just not completed yet.
Well, no, not really. It's a dynamic system. We live in a dynamic system. You were taught this in, what, 6th grade?
It's dynamic.
Yeah, in flux, in cycles.
Okay.
So
what
our
cycles
point isn't
are
that,
there?
though. Our point isn't about a pressure gradient. Our point is about if there was an availability of space for the gas to fill as it expands in all directions, so it's made its way up to Everest and the sky, it would continue going into the sky vacuum. So high pressure likes to make its way to lower pressure.
It
and if the sky was while I get interrupted again for the second time during my deconstruction of this red herring fallacy about pressure gradients. Yes, gas has made its way up to Everest. That's correct. Yes, and if the sky was a vacuum, it would keep going and we wouldn't have any gas because there'd be a vast volume that you think is space for that gas to fill. That's what we're saying.
Would keep going. Okay, it would keep going.
Get out.
Because
gas.
Get
out. You're not going to talk through every fucking word. No. Now you can sit on mute. That's what you can do. It's not going to go this way. From now on, right, you dicks who think that you can just talk through every word I say until I stop and then carry on with the vein that you've gone on, is not going to be tolerated. The second that happens from now on, you'll just be immediately removed from the conversation. Fuck you. Yeah? You will listen to my pulling apart of your red herring fallacy that is gas pressure gradients. What you won't do is mumble through it continually. You fundy fuck. Do you hear me, stranger danger, you fundy fuck?
I knew it was that, Masto, and I think
Okay,
that's
I'm sorry if
reasonable,
I
because he
offended
started
you.
interrupting you right away.
I'm just trying to understand it. Good.
It's a red herring fallacy. Because if the sky was a vacuum, we wouldn't have any gas to make this example.
I'm not saying the sky is a vacuum, okay?
It's not. But there are a huge number of people in the Western world who believe that the sky is a vacuum called outer space. Now, welcome to Flat Earth. Yes, that's right. Space is fake, and I'm glad you agree. The sky is definitely not 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum, and you agree. Welcome to Flat Earth. Lots of people still think that, though, because they're told that it's a vacuum called outer space. It's not. Glad you agree.
Would you mind, like, just helping me out here, like, double checking if I understood it correctly, right? Is that okay?
Whatever, man. Just go ahead.
Okay, cool. So, the sky can't be a vacuum, because if it is one, then and we know gas is full, whatever space is available to them, then the air would expand and fill all the space, and we would basically have no air around us, right? So the natural consequence of that thinking, right, is that if we have a container and we put gas inside it, then it fills whatever space is available to it. So we have a uniform pressure inside of it, right?
No, wrong. We have cycles.
Why not?
I just explained this. Didn't you listen? Oh, no, of course not. You talk through me constantly, and then I had to shout at you. That's right. Yes, I already explained this. And immediately he starts talking. This will be the second time. You dumb globe-believing idiot. Now sit down and be told. Without interruption, open your ears and listen to what I say. For the second time, you fundy moron. We have cycles. We are living in a dynamic system, in constant flux, not reaching equilibrium at any stage. Do you understand, given that you were taught this in 6th grade?
Okay. No, I do not understand how they can sustain that that pressure difference in the container. Because if there's no cycles, right? Then the pressure should be uniform inside the container.
In a container, are they telling us
it's time? No, it should not be uniform. What part of dynamic system? So you need it a third time. You literally need it a third time.
Okay, if there are no cycles.
If there are no cycles, there are! You fundy zealot dickhead!
I'm just...
Stutter for me, you fundy zealot dickhead who talked through me twice, and then when it comes to the point that you have to say, well, I'll create an example that doesn't have dynamic systems. No, you fundy zealot with a globe belief. We do have dynamic systems. All it does is piss in the face of your argument that you're trying to make. Do you understand?
I'm not trying to make an argument. I'm trying to understand something. I have not stated my beliefs, and you are very insulting right now. You're using a lot of insulting words.
I have explained to you 3 times that we have dynamic systems. Your response is to say, quote, if we don't have cycles, why would you do that, you fundy zealot?
You know why he would do that? Because he understands exactly why what you said destroys his argument. That's why he did it.
Exactly. It's the end of your argument. So what, are you going to call me rude? You pathetic globe-believing scumbag? Yeah, rude to somebody who's required 3 separate explanations for something that when they finally listen to it without talking through it constantly, they say, I'm going to create a scenario where your example doesn't exist anymore. How rude is that?
Nathan, I'm not trying to make an argument. I'm trying to understand things step by step.
Well, you never will, you're thick.
No, you're not.
Yet you talk when you should listen, making you demonstrably stupid, like you're doing now.
I'm sorry.
You're talking when you should be listening, making you irreparably stupid. Something I can't help you with, my friend. You will always be talking when you should be listening, because you're thick. That's your problem. That's most of the globe side's problem. They think they need to talk through the demolition of their fundy belief, like somehow that will alter the reality of their circumstances. Like somehow talking through me explaining cycles, and when you actually listen to it, telling me that you'll come up with a scenario where they don't exist, is somehow reasonable. It's not. It's zealotry. Globe-believing fundy. That's what you are. A zealot, incapable of education. Don't tell me you're trying to understand when you talk through me. You're not trying anything except obfuscation.
Okay, I'm sorry for you.
Good, now fuck off. Get out of my show, you pathetic twat.
Yeah, he's disingenuous anyway. He's not really.
I think I'm reading something from him, if I may just give my opinion on this guy. He is calling the show to have you teach him things, but he's addressing it in such a way to where he's counterproductive when he does it. He talks when you talk, when you should be listening. And so then when we made the transition to the dynamic system and the cycles, rather than saying full stop, okay, so that's what we have here. Can I ask another question about a containment without a dynamic system? What would happen there? Then he would have made a nice transition, because he's not talking about our reality. He's just asking what would happen if, okay, for example, what comes to my mind would be the balloon with gas pressure inside of it, but let's say at the bottom of the balloon there was some kind of dynamic system where it was all being produced, kind of like a bottle garden. Okay, well, sure, let's talk about it. But he didn't make that transition. He just kind of compiled everything together because he's a baller, and he's just calling in because he wants to treat you as the university teacher, Nathan, to teach him something, but he's not going about it right.
He doesn't want teaching. He wants to talk through and obfuscate everything. And then when an example's made, immediately hand wave it. Well, I'll come up with a scenario where that isn't the case. Well, you've just given us an argument that requires everything to reach equilibrium. I explain why it doesn't, and you say, well, what if it doesn't have cycles? So you just want your fundy belief to be put forward regardless of anything that contradicts it. Well, that's just zealotry. I get tired of it, especially when they come with their feigning that they want to be educated. No, they don't. That's just lies.
Well, that's where
It's that master. This is the same clown that came in here and said, oh, this is not even a debate show.
No, that's why the baller disingenuousness is in him. I didn't say he was genuine in it. I'm saying that's the way he's setting up his talk with you, to pretend he really wants this. But really, once he got the answer for the cycles in the dynamic system, a light bulb should have gone off in his head. And said, oh my God, it does work this way here. Oh, okay. Everything I've been taught was a lie. He won't go there. So he has to go to the counter one. What if it wasn't this way? Then what would happen? So he's not willing to accept the answer. So he is disingenuous.
What the point is of asking that question anyway. What's he trying to get at?
Trying to reach
Well,
the point where,
answer,
in
but
his
then he
argument,
didn't accept it.
If we have containment, we would have reached equilibrium. That is his argument.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So we say, well, no, we're in a dynamic system. What if we don't have cycles? Well, then my argument that we'd reach equilibrium would stand. You get out.
Yeah, my son hits me with the same thing. No matter how many times it's explained to him, he still comes with the same thing. He doesn't understand.
But that's what Master just proved, is that he did understand. That's why he used that example of, oh, but what if there are no systems? What, the system we just told you exists? The system that you literally live in? You're going to say that doesn't exist?
So
What
let
are
me
you
get this
talking
right.
about?
So now we have no cycles, no natural law. What else?
Gravity is insufficient to keep anything down.
Exactly. And this is what I was saying to Arwen earlier. To be praised, right? So we're reaching the point where our opponents are literally denying the very reality that everyone observes and is very accurately described in natural law. They're denying reality to retain a fundy belief in a sphere. That's where we're at. Happy days for us.
Hasn't it always been that way?
Yeah, but it's extra now, it seems. They're just blatantly just denying things that are just evident, self-evident.
Reality. They're
Fair
reality
to say
deniers.
they've become science deniers.
Yeah, they're that too.
They have become the science deniers.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
they're reality
I think some-
deniers. It's far beyond science denying
Well,
now.
I'd say both. Because remember,
They're denying
we're about
their
to
own
go into
science.
2021, right? We haven't heard body of science. We don't hear that crap anymore. That's the old and busted.
The body of
We used
science
to hear that
continuity,
crap all the
didn't you?
time.
I think a lot of people come in here thinking that the flat Earth is strongly associated with religion and Christian beliefs, and they don't really respect that we respect science. We genuinely do.
I'd like to know at what point the ground underneath my feet became a religion. Could somebody put me onto that? Any Globers in here would like to tell me how flat Earth, the Earth, the ground that we all live on, how is that a religion?
Well, I think they
Or
often
is,
think
or is
that
the religion
we
the
think
globe?
it's
Because
based on
that
a
seems to be
religious-
like a belief. Right? So which sounds more like a religion? I'm sorry, Rams, if I cut you off, brother.
No, you're good, man.
That was it? That was the only baller for the end of the year?
Yep. It's been an interesting one, man. Nobody claims the horizons, the curve of the Earth. We do. We don't have geometric horizons. I mean, this is a year of reminiscing, man.
So I said the movie The Matrix, so this Ed Masso just fulfilled my request with
It's
actual
going to be a
evidence.
great show on Saturday. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to
Anniversary
Ballbusters.
Day.
Yeah, it should be good. Given that this comes out after it, I believe. Maybe. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's going to be a good show. And
Nathan,
hopefully we'll
what
do a
was
bit
the
of...
timeline that you gave where people would catch on? What was the high point? 18 months?
no, I think there were lengthier guesstimates.
No, I think I had... Somebody had 9 months. I had 14 months.
I thought somebody said 18 months.
No, I don't think so. I think I had the high with 14, at least putting a number on it.
Yeah, we're talking about...
I almost want to take that back. I don't even want to put a number on it because I think there's some...
extended it, right?
Right?
It's been extended,
No,
so... The initial numbers, Chocolate might have had the longest at 14, but obviously since then, QE's revised the number and said, well, it's going to be at least 18 months and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think you're right, Chocolate. For passing my memory back a year, you have probably had the longest guess saying, oh, it'll be over a year. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was on the other end. I made a big mistake because I was thinking the way I think. I said, oh, it'll take him 9 months. It's so obvious. I was so off.
Just for the benefit of the audience who are watching this. So if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles and every distance to horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and the black swan showed a horizon well in excess of 10 miles, an observer height of 1 foot. Therefore, the physical parameters of a geometric sphere-edge horizon were shattered beyond repair. Now, we said that modus tollens argument, which would be if the Earth is a sphere radius 3959, then every distance to horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, would take, I said, well, it won't take any time at all. Spurs and me were the most wrong. So me and Spurs, right, got it, and went, well, this won't take long for people to understand. And me and Spurs were like, yeah, of course it won't. Very funny.
Yeah, well, once I heard them starting to tell us how the horizon's apparent, like they started saying things like it's the apparent horizon, I had to sit back like, wait a minute. Isn't that what the fuck we're saying? Isn't that our argument the entire time that the damn horizon's an apparent position? That like how is it that now this is the rebuttal to this argument? That's when I realized, holy shit, and they're telling us this. They're telling us exactly how geometric their horizon is not.
Exactly. It's on screen. This is AB Science's diagram. So I got this from a YouTuber called AB Science. Should be called AB Math. Nevertheless, he's got his two horizons labelled. Location of the geometric horizon. That's the one you don't see. The one that used to get in the way of oil rigs. And the location of the apparent horizon. The one you do see. And if you look, you've got a bent line to the apparent horizon, and therefore the horizon we don't see is this one that makes a tangent line. Now, Al-Biruni's claimed to have derived an R value by having a tangent line being capable of being drawn to a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, which they tell us isn't what we see. I mean, obviously it exists here in the maths, but it's not what we see. We see a bent line. So no more geometry, no more drawing tangent lines, no more having tangent point horizons, because that's a position that we don't see. Furthermore, we wouldn't expect to see a geometric horizon. That would be the same horizon they claim blocks boats and buildings in the distance. Well, we wouldn't expect to see that. And according to Tim Osman, a long-standing globe proponent, nobody's claiming we see a geometric horizon. Nobody's claiming that. Yet while he's presenting pictures of what he thinks is a physical geometric sphere edge blocking boats and buildings into the distance, these people are so laden with cognitive dissonance as a result of the black swan and their lack of comprehension thereof that they end up drawing up diagrams with two horizons in side view, where you've got an observer seeing the side of their own head, a tangent point they're demolishing, and claiming that you've got a bent donkey dick to a horizon that isn't physical anymore, so it can't block boats and buildings. They annihilate their own argument as a direct result of the black swan. It's the most epic argument to destroy the globe ever. They haven't got a physical horizon, and they tell us so. Epic. All hail black swan.
For real. It's bad. This is them snatching their own wig off, man. Awesome. I thought a couple of them might have been like, I don't know, just kind of confused and, just, I guess, just admitting to the argument. But I realized like they have no choice. Their geometry's dead in the water, literally.
Yeah, but for the ones who've stuck their head in the sand and haven't bothered to understand the modus tollens argument, they just say refraction. It's like not appreciating that by saying the horizon is no longer capable of geometric measurement, it's refracted. You're debunking the idea that you have a geometric model to assert. But most of them just think that they've won when they say refraction. Well, the black swan's horizon's refracted. What are you, some sort of thicko? Well, what are you, someone who denies that the horizon's a physical edge to block boats and buildings now because it's refracted? You've just debunked your own globe Earth model, mate.
And their radius. And their globe.
Yeah,
let's take it down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, the entire heliocentric model falls in upon itself in a paradox when presented with the black swan, showing that you haven't got the physical capabilities of their geometric assertion that Earth's a sphere.
Precisely.
So Be Here or Be Sphere, 5 hours ago on the Quantum Racers channel.
So, Ed Masto proved the Matrix movie scenario. He comes on a little while ago, and he says, so yes, we know that if you have gas and you have a vacuum, it's all going to go up and there'll be none here and we'll all be dead. But then he knows that, but then he goes the other way. So he's living in the Matrix, but he just uttered some reality, but it doesn't get him out of the Matrix, right?
As it's on screen, I might as well draw the conclusion. Indeed, yes, 10th. but this is Al-Biruni's derivation to get an R value. And as you can see, the line between A and C to get that 90 degrees to derive the R value based on the dip angle, an assumption of a horizon at this line here based on your zenith pointing towards a presupposed spherical Earth. So he takes the horizon dip angle measurement and then derives R with trig. Well, this isn't possible if you've got a bent line to a non-physical horizon. You can't do the trig because you need a tangent point to do geometry that you're asserting when you say boats get blocked by this point. You're saying this horizon's your Earth curve edge that gets in the way, but then telling us how it's no longer physical and you wouldn't expect to see it. Why is it marked with an X-labelled horizon and claimed to be blocking boats and buildings in your maths if you simultaneously want to tell us that it's refracted, non-physical, apparent? Yeah, welcome to Flat Earth.
Welcome back.
So if it's refracted, you can't do it. End of story.
Refracted, the horizon, you can't derive R. And their refraction is based on R. Terrestrial refraction, otherwise known as standard refraction, is 7/6 of the radius. So in order to assert that it's a refracted horizon in the first instance, you'd need R to assert that, because your R is required when you say refraction, because your refraction is 7/6 of the R value, derived from a physical horizon you're saying's bent with refraction. That's a paradox.
Well, they're screwed either way.
Yeah, so that's why it's number one. Debunks the entirety of the heliocentric model because it's all based on the radius value that they assume and give Venus as the same assumption as R for Earth is assumed. And based on that, they apply Kepler's third law. They give you all the distances. The entire model is based on R. Without it, it collapses. There is no heliocentric model. Further to that, their assumption that the sky is a vacuum is debunked by the second law of thermodynamics. Free expansion into a vacuum is easy to demonstrate. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill the space. Debunking any notion that we have a sky vacuum, space is fake. Last but by no means least, we're not moving. If the Earth was moving, we'd notice a Coriolis deflection, as asserted that we should notice, but don't. There should be things drifting away from us at 15 degrees an hour as we rotate underneath them, if Earth is asserted to rotate to cause the Sun and the stars to move. Well, if that's the case, then we have Coriolis deflection. That's what Coriolis deflection is. Now, based on the fact that nothing's drifting away from you at 1,000 miles an hour, you don't launch your drone on the equator and find that you rotate underneath it at 1,000 miles an hour for it to appear to drift away from you at 1,000 miles an hour, or the fact that flight times aren't reduced, Charlotte to North Carolina would take an hour and a half if Earth was rotating underneath for you to observe it to seem to drift from the ground. That's Coriolis deflection that we're not observing, therefore we don't have Coriolis effect, Earth is not spinning. So we don't have spin, Earth's not moving. We don't have space, because the sky cannot be a vacuum, we wouldn't have any gas to breathe, and Earth doesn't have any measurable curvature. We've demonstrably shown that the physical parameters of a sphere Earth are in breach of their own geometry, and to move the geometry with a radius value you can no longer measure leaves your model in a paradox. Earth is not a sphere. Earth is obviously and observably flat.
Indeed.
Those were the top 3 globe-demolishing proofs that you can have. Coriolis effect, the sky vacuum, the second law of thermodynamics, and the black swan.
Last call, ballers. You can come on or not?
Plenty of ballers here.
Oh, in case there's some in Discord.
Go on, Chris.
Oh, sorry, was someone else talking?
Yeah, there was an invite put out for people to talk, so I assumed that was a response to it.
What's up, Chris?
Good morning, Chocolate. I've been in text, I've been telling them, today's your last day. Either you prove the globe today, or you surrender another year to the flat earth.
What did he say?
Imagine that, right? Going into a whole new decade, like this, with no geometry, literally telling us gravity ain't sufficient to hold down gas. Nobody claims horizon's the curve of the Earth. I mean, it's beautiful, man.
Natural laws, not real.
Did you think that you'd be in this position, Globers, in 2015, 2016, when you were telling us, oh, flat Earth is dead in a year? Did you see this happening?
Or the last one you brought up, which is, oh, it's optical. It's refraction. It's optical now.
Yeah. Welcome to flat
Anybody
Earth.
hear me?
Yeah, that's just wrong, though. When they say it's optical, though, it's optical. No, it isn't, because their refraction is 7/6 of the radius value. That's a geometric value. So when they say refraction is optical, no. Refraction is optical, but your refraction is 7/6r, based on a radius value. That's your standard terrestrial refraction that you must use when you assert you're on a sphere. That's your standard refraction. And it's geometric, I assure you. 7/6 of the radius value. Not optical. When we're looking at photos, we say, yeah, that's optical, because it's an optical photo, but you'll put it side by side with a picture of a man with his own head showing, inside profile. That'd be orthographic view, and showing a marked with an X labelled horizon physical geometric edge that you simultaneously tell us can't be seen, and that no one's claiming. Beautiful end to the 2020 that we had, that's been named the year of the Black Swan. Because it is that silver bullet, which we didn't have in 2019, 2017, 2015. We didn't have a silver bullet. Well, now we do. The Black Swan is that silver bullet.
Mike, check.
Yes, Neil, we hear you.
We hear you, Neil.
I just transferred it to my car. I didn't think anybody was hearing me.
No, that was good, Nathan, to dissect it that way, because when they say optical, they don't mean our optical.
But they don't mean optical at all, because their refraction isn't optical, it's geometric.
Yeah, because first they were talking about perspective, light, how we see, and then all of a sudden now you're changing the size of the Earth? How does that work?
And also they don't have any perspective to assert. Their geometric Earth curve mathematics does not change the apparent size of a target as it increases with distance. So a 10-foot wall is a 10-foot wall at a mile, 10 miles, and 1,000,000 miles in the globe Earth maths. The size, the apparent size, the size it appears to be, does not change with distance. So the angular size reduces the further you get away from a target. In the globe Earth maths, they've removed all aspects of perspective by putting it in a side profile view where you see your side of your own head, and the target's value, actual size value, that would be feet and inches or meters, does not change with distance, implying that you can see things forever. And the only reason they would disappear is because an Earth curve edge they say we can't see got in the way. But of course, nobody's claiming the horizon's Earth curve, even though it's marked with an X and claimed to be getting in the way of things that they ignore perspective on.
Funny how they'll be real quick to ignore angular size change when it comes to the Earth, right? But then they'll ask us all day, why does the sun change angular size?
Meanwhile, nothing in the distance when compared to globe mass is changing in size. It's always a 10-foot wall. Well, it is, isn't it? Well, yeah, it might be measured 10 foot when you stood right next to it, but the angular size changes. It gets smaller and eventually disappears completely. What's that you say? No, it doesn't. Only Earth curve gets in the way when you give it a feet and inches value and ask us why so many feet and inches are missing from the bottom. Well, because the angle's reduced too much, that's why. What's that you say? Your maths doesn't do angles, but yet they also tell us how it's just perspective when their maths doesn't do that. And they also tell us how it's optical with refraction when their maths doesn't do that either. Yeah, that's them desperately trying to assert our own argument back to us like it's a defence of their perspective hijacking mathematics.
Yeah, but whoever said Earth curve was the horizon?
Earth curve maths, Mick West.
All of them.
All of them.
The same guy. At the
Tim
same
Osmond.
time. Yep.
That was a big classic day when Tim Osmond came on.
Didn't he come in with it?
Yeah, he did. So for the audience's benefit, Tim Osmond came in and said, nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve, and then presented an image that said, this is Earth curve, with multiple pictures of the horizon he claimed were blocking boats and buildings into the distance. But nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve, even though it's marked with an X, labelled as a horizon, and claim to be blocking things in the distance which aren't accounted for in terms of angular size based on their feet and inches value that's missing, according to their perception of a physical horizon that nobody claims. It all makes total sense.
Yep.
It's too funny,
Are you
man.
muting me?
No, you're here.
No, he's taking the piss out of Tim
that's what
Osmond.
Tim said. That was his response. Are you muting me?
Oh, that's right. I fell for that one.
It has been a
one.
very good year. I wouldn't have honestly said that towards the end of 2020 we'd have Tim Osmond telling us, quote, nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve, end quote. I wouldn't have anticipated that. I wouldn't have also anticipated that lots and lots of YouTubers would be so arrogant as to go on video with their face showing and say, nobody's claiming we see geometry. Or nobody's claiming we have horizons that we can measure as geometric. That's what we had at the beginning of 2020. And at the end of 2020, nobody's claiming it at all, apparently. So, bye-bye Globe Earth maths, bye-bye Globe Earth. Black Swan.
Yep.
Yay! After show still going.
Armin's done shopping.
Yes.
What's up, Armin?
Yeah, I just figured out they freaking banned fireworks here. Didn't even know that because, I don't know, like for the last month, on a daily basis, even in the middle of the night, everybody's been lighting up fireworks all the time. But apparently it's
Welcome to my
illegal.
world.
The fuck? Sorry.
They have
Sorry,
a
I've already-
law in America that if somebody blows off their finger, ban everything.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you first and foremost to both Discord and G Plus Panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.